Okay, now that we've looked at audio normalizing, I'm going to look at another aspect of audio. Well, in fact, two aspects of audio that are in some ways related. I'm going to be talking about volume in this tutorial in terms of how we can adjust the volume without actually normalizing, and we'll also look at panning our audio left to right, whether it's with a mono file or a stereo file. So far, when we've been adjusting our audio, what we do is we select our clip down on the timeline, and I'll select this piano one that we introduced in the previous tutorial, and then come up to our effect controls. Once here, within the audio effects section, you can see that we've got three categories: volume, channel volume, and panner. Let's look at volume first of all. Inside here, we have this level, whereby if I want to adjust it down, I would left click on the numerical value here, initially set to 0 dB, i.e. maximum volume, and then drag to the left so that I end up with a resulting negative number, in this case minus 13 dB, i.e. what would happen is, if we were to play this piano track back now, that loudest peak, wherever it is, within the file will now only register at minus 13 dB on our audio meter at the bottom right. Okay, now just take that back to 0, double clicking in there and typing 0. An alternative method of changing this, reveal the level there and then use the drag slider. We've seen this a few times already during this course. Dragging it to the left reduces our volume. You'll also notice just to the right, the volume level is indicated by that horizontal line. You can see that it's been dragged down. If I change this again by dragging it to the right and increasing our volume and back down again, then you can see that that horizontal line reflects whatever our volume is now set at. Okay, now you could revert back by typing in 0 once more, or to the right here, you could click on this reset button and this takes you back to 0 dB. Just as a quick reminder, you can also use keyframes here with audio. Keyframes aren't restricted to video. If I move the CTI across slightly and then drag the volume down to about minus 6 dB, then you can see automatically that keyframe has been brought in. The volume would start at 0 dB, but then reduce to minus 5.7 dB once it reached that point. Okay, now I'm just going to remove that keyframe by clicking on here to go to it, and then clicking on that delete button there. Okay, so that's volume. Let's work our way down to the bottom option, panner. I'll come back to channel volume in a moment. As you know, we have two ears, so we hear everything in stereo. If we've got a stereo file, a stereo audio file, then that stereo audio file comprises of a left channel and a right channel, and the balance is embedded within the audio file itself. But if we wanted to adjust it, for some reason maybe we've recorded a stereo file and one side is a bit louder than the other, well, we can use this balance here to reset this so that we get a more evenly balanced output. You can either drag it to the left or to the right to rebalance an unequal stereo file. Possibly the best way to do this is to keep your eye on your meters, the meter in the bottom right hand corner. Although that said, you can do this in the audio mixer, but we'll look at that in the next tutorial. Okay, now I'll just take my balance back to 0, seeing as I know this piano track is well recorded. There is no mismatch in panning. Okay, so that's what we can do here in terms of volume and the panner, and in fact the channel volume, which we're going to look at in a moment, here within the effect controls panel. But remember, you can also access these operations down here. If you come back down to the timeline and where it says FX on any of these clips, right click on it and there you'll see the same options: volume, channel volume and panner. Rolling over any of these, you can fly out and choose one of these further options. Now the difference between volume and channel volume means that, well, we saw with the volume, when we adjusted the volume, we either increased or decreased the volume equally across a stereo file. But if you have got a stereo file, as I said earlier on, of course it's going to be comprised of a left and a right channel. Well, by using this channel volume option, you can see that you can adjust one of the sides, left or right, independent of the other. And then down at the bottom we have panner with its operation of balance that we've just looked at. Now if I select it, that now means on my clip that horizontal line can be selected and adjusted. So if I left click on it there, around about the middle of our stereo clip, and then drag it up or down, well, as you can see, we are now adjusting the pan. Dragging it down here to around about 53, what's that, 53.57, is reflected over in the effect controls panel, although not to that decimal position. This is rounded up to one decimal position of 53.6 instead of 53.57. Going the other way, dragging it up, then of course this reflects up here as well. Okay, now I'm just going to centralize it. In fact, it's probably easier if I come up here and type in 0 to balance it out equally once more. Okay, now just one final thing. I'll come back down to the timeline on my clip, right click on effects once more, and we'll have a closer look at the channel volume. Flying out to the right there, I can either choose to bypass or choose the left channel or the right channel independently. And as you can see, if we come up to the effect controls, inside the channel volume option, you can see that we've got those same functions, bypass, left and right. So if you wanted to adjust the left without the right, then, well, in this case, I'm using the drag slider. And by taking it to -16, -16.2 dB, you can see down on my clip that the horizontal line is down here to reflect this attenuation. Okay, now I'm going to take it back to 0, and there we go. A quick run through then, looking at volume and panning here within the main user interface, looking at the effect controls panel, and down on the timeline, accessing the same parameters via the effects option on each individual clip. In the next tutorial, we'll take this a step further and look at the audio mixer.